Okay, this is solving equations with absolute value. Remember to pause this anytime you need to. Remember to pay attention when I say something is a quiz question, because you're going to see that again on Edmodo. Remember to watch for the star, meaning this is something that's commonly missed. Make sure you pause it and write everything as I write it. If you only have the numbers that I've written down, you haven't written enough. Highlight, underline, circle, use different colors. Make sure you know where every number I write down comes from. Write more than I write. Assume that you're not going to remember tomorrow. So the first thing is that expressions with absolute value define an upper and lower range in which a value must lie. For instance, absolute value could talk about the temperature of an oven. So if you set the oven on 350 degrees, the manufacturer will probably say, well, it's not necessarily going to be exactly 350 all the time. Because if you watch an oven, it turns on, and it'll heat up, and then it'll stop, and then it'll turn on again. So it's really maybe closer into this range. So the oven heats it up a little bit more, maybe lets it cool down a little bit less. But it's not going to be exactly 350 all the time. These are situations that have absolute value. Same thing with the speed of a car. The speedometer might say 60, but maybe it's about 60 and a half or close to 61. The thermostat in a room. So in my classroom, it can go to any of these temperatures, 70, 71, 72, so there can be a 1 degree difference before the heater or the air conditioning will even turn on. So that's what we're talking about, an upper and lower range where a value must be. Absolute value is always positive. That does not mean a variable cannot be negative. So make sure you pay attention to that. Read that, study that. The variable can be negative, definitely, but the absolute value cannot be. That absolute value is distance from zero. It tells you how far away something is from zero. It just doesn't tell you the direction. Here's an example. Let's say I'm looking at the absolute value. I want to know what's the absolute value of 4. So the absolute value of 4 would be 4. 4 is 4 spaces away from 0. What about negative 4? Well, that's also 4. Both of these are 4 places away from 0. Notice how absolute value is always positive. So notice how that is positive. But this does not have to be positive, just when you get the answer to absolute value. So those will also be positive. Okay, so distance away from 0, it has to be positive. So over here, 9, absolute value of that is 9. Absolute value of negative 9 is also 9. Some people get confused. They think all I'm doing is taking the opposite. It is not the opposite. Okay? Watch this. Pay attention. Absolute value is not the opposite. It's just always going to be positive. The next thing is, let's say I have absolute value of x is equal to 9. Well, what does x equal? What is 9 places away from 0? Well, that could be 9 or negative 9. I don't know. And if you don't put both answers, then you haven't gotten it correct. Whenever you're solving absolute value, make sure you completely simplify inside the absolute value bars. Then take the absolute value, then continue. So make sure you follow that. There's 2 cases. So make sure you listen to this. There are 2 cases, one positive and one negative. And Remember, there's no solution when the answer to absolute value is negative. So please re-watch this and review this part of the video, and then come back for part 2 where I work the problems.